Welcome everybody to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we're going to be having a look at BTC. Let's get into the charts and see what's going on. Before we jump into the lower degree counts here, we're going to go over the higher time frame idea here, where we're looking at the potential that this is a 5-wave move off the low here. We're looking for this as a possible completed B wave and then looking for either a C wave to the upside, in which case our typical target would be towards this 1-to-1 level here at this 49,862. I am going to also be looking out for this potential of seeing a shorter C wave here towards 38 to 40 if this is just going to be a corrective structure. Alternatively, this could also develop into a bigger wave 3. Now, for this to actually develop into a wave 3, we'd have to see a push up towards this zone of the 76,599 level, and then we'd be looking for an additional fourth and a fifth to confirm that idea. Now, within this idea here, there is a possibility that this B wave could still be incomplete. So we need to also be aware of that idea here, that we could still see another pushback down into this lower support area here between this 0.382 to this 786. Now, the reason I'm saying this 0.382 is because in the idea that we have something like a flat correction here, the 0.382 to the 50% is a common area that we actually look for if we are going to get a flat. Now we're going to go over that idea here, and then we're going to talk about that more bullish possibility where we could be looking for this direct push up in the C wave. So within the idea that we could be within the flat correction here, what we'd be looking for is something more along these lines, where what we'd be then saying is that we have this as an ABC pattern as a flat for our A wave. We're looking at this just as a corrective structure to the upside for this B wave, and then we're looking for this C wave down. Now we have come up towards this zone of this 1.618, which is a rare target for this B wave as an overshooting B wave. If we do look to break down here, what we'd be expecting to see is a move down towards this 1236 to this 1618. And in rare cases, what we can see, if we get an extremely strong B wave here, we can see price actually look to push down towards this 2.618 level. Though we need to just be mindful that as long as we actually hold this low here of this 24,964, we do have potential for bullish structure to just continue to the upside. So this is going to be our line in the sand here. If we're going to see a flat correction, ideally, I'd like to see this low get swept, and we'd be looking for this lower move to actually push down into some of these lower targets here. Now, if we are going to look at this as a flat correction here, where we're looking for this to be a B wave to the upside, the way that I'm looking at this currently is in two ways. So we could argue that this is W, X, and Y into this point, which makes our blue A wave here. We're looking for this as a B, and then we're looking for this as a C wave to the upside. Now, within this idea of this being a C wave to the upside, what I'd be looking for is that this could be 1, 2, 3. We're looking for a fourth here. We have come into this typical zone, and we could be then looking for this fifth wave to the upside. So as long as we continue to hold this 33,403, we could potentially be looking for this fifth wave up. We also need to be on the lookout here that we could have a more corrective move forming here, where we see price come back down into these levels, where basically we form this as a W, an X, and a Y, in which case this 33,849 to this 32,335 is going to be an important zone to look out for here. Now, there is the possibility that internally here we could see something like a triangle, in which case what we'd then be looking for is something more along these lines, where what we'd be saying is that this is A, B, C, D, and E, and what we could be looking for is a 5-wave move off this 34,114. Now, to get confirmation of something like this, what I would be looking for is effectively for this move to either be into here, and which we have as a flat correction more locally, where this becomes A, B, and C, or alternatively, we could argue that our fifth wave actually completes up here, and we're going to be looking for price to actually hold this lower support zone here. And I wouldn't really want to see us lose this 34,271. We have come down here deep enough, but if we do complete into this high over here, what I'd be looking for is a 3-wave structure to push us back down. If, however, we complete into this high here, this could actually be enough to have already completed the move, and we could be looking for this third wave up. So the key difference here is that if we complete into this zone, 35,401 is going to be a typical third wave area, in which case we'll be looking for an additional fourth and a fifth to the upside. If, however, we push down deeper here and we see these lower levels get revisited, this 0.618 is going to be an interesting zone if we do push down one more time towards this 34,395. Alternatively, this 786 at this 34,271. So this would be looking for one more push to the upside here, looking to complete that bearish move, and then we'd be looking for that break to the downside. Now, within this, there is a couple of ways that we can read this structure here, so we need to just be aware of this. We're going to go over this a bit more within the bullish count, but effectively, if we start to break down in a more impulsive way from here, this could then align with the idea that this move is either completed or we're going to be looking for a bit of a deeper retracement here for this wave 4 before looking for that continuation up, where we could be looking to revisit this lower target box area. If, however, we start to lose this 32,335, the probability is then that we have a completed move here, and we're going to have to monitor the retracement, because if we find support above this low here of this 28,125, we could potentially still see further extension, and we're going to go over that within the bullish count. Like I said, within the flat idea here, what we want to see is price looking for a rejection up here, and then looking for the C wave to start to develop in 5-wave structure. Ideally looking to sweep this A wave low here, because if this is a flat, it would be more likely that we're going to get an expanding flat rather than a running flat. But nevertheless, I'm going to be keeping an eye on these targets once we start to get a clear breakdown starting to develop. Now, if we are looking at this actually starting to develop in that C wave or that wave 3, there's a couple of ways that I'm looking for this to play out. So we could get something like this, where effectively what we have here is that this is 1, 2, 1, 2, and we're looking for this bigger third wave to the upside. Now, we have actually already pushed past this 2.618 level. If we're looking at this as another 1 and a 2 here. Alternatively, a target to the upside here, which would be of interest, would be this 37,420. If we do see price continuing to extend to the upside here, this would align with that 3.618. Though this is technically done enough to actually be completed. Now, like I said, there's a couple of ways we can look at this move to the upside. What we could argue is that we have something like this, where this is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're looking for this fifth wave up, where we're going to be looking for 36,513 to this 35,756 as a potential target. Within this idea, what we'd then be looking for is a push to the upside, 3 waves back to the downside, potentially looking to retest this previous fourth wave, and then seeing another push to the upside, which would be looking to push us up towards this zone of this 40,184 to this 38,440. We can see that there is a target box up in this area between this 40,903 to this 38,974 that I'm looking for the potential of a test onto, but we'll have to see whether we actually get that playing out. Now, it is also possible that we could argue that this is just 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're looking to form the final fifth wave here, in which case what we'd be looking for is a push to the upside here towards 36,501 to this 35,740. Now, within this would then align with this being the completion of the third wave here, the yellow third wave. Then we'd be looking for an additional fourth and a fifth. Now, if we take this idea here and we overlay an additional support zone here for the secondary fourth wave, the yellow fourth wave, this would be in this case. This would then put our target area for this yellow fourth wave between this 33,549 and this 30,938. Now, the key thing is here, what we'd want to see is a push up, 3 waves back down, holding this level, then another push up, a retracement to the downside, and then another 5-wave move to the upside. So this would be looking for a series of additional fourths and fifths looking to push us up to the upside, and this would actually be indicating that we're going to start to see some extension playing out here. Now, an alternative way that we talked about previously was that what we could also say is that this could have a diagonal in the beginning of it, where what we're saying is that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This becomes our wave 2 here. We have another 1, 2, and then effectively the same idea is playing out. We're looking for that possibility that we could see some further extension here in the yellow third wave, in which case what we'd be saying is that as long as we hold 32,696, we have the potential to push to the upside for this blue target box area. If we do move into that zone, then we will be watching the additional target areas here for the additional fourth wave between 34,742 to this 32,286. The idea with this is that I would like to see this hold the previous fourth waves, but we are allowed to dip through this zone, but I wouldn't want to see this come back down and cross this level of this 30k region. As long as we remain above that, we have potential for this continuation up, where we could see this additional fifth wave, another 3-wave move to the downside, and another push to the upside, which would then align with actually looking to push us up towards this 3.618 area here of this 42,347, which would align with this target box up here. So going to be keeping an eye on the internals of this. When we get structures which start to extend, it becomes very difficult to count the subwave, so we have to do it on a play-by-play basis as the information comes in. So now we're going to focus in on the top end of this and talk about the lower time frame stuff here. Now within this, there's a few things that I'm looking for. So like I said, if we are looking at the possibility that this is a fourth wave, there is always the potential that what we could see is that we could have this as a W wave, this is an X wave, and then we see another 3-wave move to the downside, in which case the target currently would be between this 32,901 to this 32,477. So this would be looking for another break to the downside. This would also look to push up into this 0.382 area here at this 32,343. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that level if we do see price looking to push down. Now it is possible that we could start to see a direct break to the upside here, and we're going to come in a little bit closer and talk about this idea. Now within this idea, what we'd be saying is that we have a series of 1s and 2s again here, and we could be looking for a direct extension. So this could look to push some of those targets up a little bit higher here, and what I'd be looking for in the immediate short term here would be that we cannot cross 34,114. If we do maintain this level and we do see price come back down into this blue support box area, which we have already touched this 50%. Now if we do look to rally off this 50% zone, the 1.618 is actually putting us up here towards this 35,704. If we see price do something like this and we do come back down here, as long as we hold this lower level here of this 34,272, there is a possibility to see this blue 5-wave structure develop. If we do look to push up in this 5-wave move in the blue here, what we need to be careful of is within the triangle idea, what we would be saying is that from further back here, we have this as A, B, C, D, and E. And then we could just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that completes the move. And then we'd look for a bigger retracement here. But within this idea, what we'd be looking for is effectively having some secondary fourths and fifths to play out. So what I want to see here is that if we do get the blue count play out here, where we get this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I will be looking for this as a potential wave 3. Now the key thing here is that we will not want to see this move back down and cross this high of this 34,750. If that is the case, we'd want to see this 5-wave move play out. We'd want to see 3 waves back to the downside and then see another push to the upside here. Now these targets obviously will change depending on how the waves play out, but effectively if the blue wave count pushes up past this 35,458, I will be looking for that possibility of a fourth wave to come in before looking for some additional structure to play out to the upside and some additional fourths and fifths. So that's going to be an extension within the top end. If we're looking for the triangle, what we could be looking for is that our low actually comes in at 34,118. And we're looking for just a 5-wave structure to the upside, looking to complete the move. Now, it is always possible that if we do get this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, we could then look to actually revisit this level again, and we could look to find support again in the zone here above this 34,405, making this a bigger wave 1. We look for wave 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we need to just be on the lookout for this extension possibility with where we currently are sitting with BTC, because if we do start to see something like this, then this would be actually imply that we are probably within a third wave and not that wave C. So we're going to have to keep an eye on it and take it one step at a time and see how we get on. Now, it is also possible, because we're looking for a fifth wave here, what we could also argue is that instead of looking at this as 1, 2, 1, 2, we could have this just as a wave 1. Now this would mean that this is wave 1, we'd be looking for this as wave 2, and now what I'd be looking for is for this to develop as A, B, and C if we're looking for this as a diagonal. Now I have this trend line drawn off of these two highs here. In reality, it can be steeper because the trend line is typically drawn between the wave 1 and the wave 3. So until we get the wave 3 in place, This trend line could be more steep, something like this, but we'll have to wait for that confirmation. Now, the key thing within this idea is instead of getting a bigger 5-wave move, what we'd be looking for is A, B, and C. So we'd be looking for this move to potentially come back down here into the zone of this 34,488 to this 34,272, and then we'd be looking for another 5-wave structure to the upside. If this move fails to push up above 35,506, then we can be looking for that possibility of this developing as a diagonal. But if we start to push up past 35,506, the probability is then that we are within the other bullish structure here, where we will be looking for that 3rd wave to actually play out to the upside. So this is what I'm just keeping an eye on. Once again, with the same idea here, if we do form a diagonal, until we actually start breaking the lows here, we need to be open to the interpretation that this could be another 1-2, and then we could start to see a bigger 3rd wave developing to the upside after this. So this is where it's going to be very crucial to see how we react. If we either form this as a diagonal or we get a smaller 5-wave move to the upside, it's going to be very important how we react. 3 waves to the downside could then mean that we are going to see additional 5th wave structures to the upside. If, however, we start to see 5-wave structure to the downside, we need to be very careful that this doesn't become 1-2, and then we look for a deeper wave 3 to play out at a later point. This is what I'm going to be focusing on within the subwave counting as we see the waves actually develop. Okay, so coming in here and having a look at the CPR lines, what we can see is that we've had pretty ranging CPR lines for the last 6 days here. We are currently above our central lines, and we have had an interaction with our R1 line here at this 34,872. If we continue to remain above our central lines here, there is still a possibility that we could look to rally and test some of these higher levels. 35,223, 35,695, 36,047 are upside targets for today. If, however, we start to see rejection here and we fail to break back above this R1 line here of this 34,865, I will be looking for that possibility that we could see price looking to either come back down into our central lines here, 34,471 to this 34,340. If we lose those lines, other targets to the downside for today would be 34,055. We have yesterday's low here at 33,926, and then we have some lower targets of 33,583, 33,226, and this 32,766 as potential downside targets for today. Now, moving over here, we have new weekly pivot points as well. We can see here that we haven't had an interaction with these yet. If we do see price come back down here one more time, I'm going to be looking out for that possibility of a retest of some of these zones. So we have 33,873, 33,239, 32,571 as potential downside target support for this week. If we do continue to push to the upside here, targets for this week would be 36,591, 38,610, and this 41,947 as potential upside targets. If we lose these central lines, I'm going to be looking out for a potential retest of this S1 line here at this 31,184. If we lose that zone, then we have lower targets here for this week of 27,860 and this 25,751. Moving over and having a look at the monthly pivots here, what we can see is that we've actually met all of our targets for this month. We also do not have very much time left for this month, so if we do see price come back down here, I'm going to be looking for that possibility of finding support on these lines. But we are going to get some new lines printed as of Wednesday, so I'm going to be keeping an eye on where those come into play here. But like I said, we could potentially look to find support on these lines here. But because we don't have a lot of time left here, I'll be paying a bit more attention towards these weekly lines and these daily lines until we actually start to get those monthly ones coming in. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video. Leave us some feedback down below, and also in the description you will find a link to the Discord. Come check it out, it's free to join. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.